Out of all the fights on the UFC 296 card, the most lopsided in terms of the odds, I think it's something like 6-1, is Shavkat Rakhmanov versus Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. And it's a classic story, right? This young, up-and-coming guy is challenging one of the greats of the division. But this isn't just any guy. He is 17-0. Every single one of his fights he has finished. So he is incredibly dangerous, and he's going up against a guy who's basically known for, when he wins, winning by decision. He does have finishes, he does have KOs, different things like that. But that's essentially what he's known for. Now, within this fight, there is one factor that could potentially make this a lot closer than people think. It took me a while to sort of piece this together. If this variable plays as significant as a factor as I think it could, we could be looking at a much closer fight than what the betting odds would have you believe. What's up, everybody? Thank you for stopping by the Ultimate Punching channel. Before I get into this variable, I would really appreciate it if you could hit the like button and hit the subscribe button. It helps with the YouTube algorithm and it helps me grow the channel. So a little bit of backstory, right? The first thing I think we need to consider is the fact that both of these guys, Shavkat and Wonderboy, have a common opponent in Jeff Neal. Both of them beat Jeff Neal pretty handedly. You may not remember this, but back in 2020, Wonderboy stomped his ass, beat him from pillar to post the entire time. Jeff Neal barely landed anything of significance because Jeff Neal's a striker. He's not a wrestler. He's not a grappler. So those two could stand and bang. And Wonderboy loves a scenario like that. With Shavkat, he did stand and trade with Jeff Neal. And there were moments in there where Jeff Neal was doing some work, doing some damage. In the grappling and different things like that, Shavkat certainly got the better of him. He ended the fight with a submission. But if it's a tit-for-tat striking match between Shavkat and Wonderboy, clearly Shavkat's got the youth, the explosiveness, probably the power on his side. But Wonderboy's a tricky guy for almost anybody to figure out, which is why his last two losses were all losses due to grappling. Okay, but Jesse, why doesn't Shavkat just take him down, hold him down, beat him up, submit him? That could happen. That 100% could happen. But I want you to think back prior to his two losses, Gilbert Burns and Belal Muhammad, right? Prior to those two losses, Wonderboy was considered to be someone with really good takedown defense, right? It's hard to get to the ground. When he got to the ground, I can't recall a time where he was taken down other than in those two scenarios. He might have been. I just don't recall. But another thing I want us to just kind of think about is what were the circumstances behind those takedowns? If we look at those two in a row losses, both of them happened in 2021. And in 2021, they were fighting during COVID, right? Smaller octagon, no crowds, smaller octagon. They were fighting in a smaller octagon, right? And because they're fighting in a smaller octagon, Wonderboy is easier to catch, easier to grab a hold of, easier to get to the ground. The thing that Wonderboy loves the most is space, right? He needs space in order to do his kicks, his karate style, to do his movement, all this type of thing. And so if we're looking at the situation now, Shavkat's going to have a larger cage compared to what Belal Muhammad did, compared to what Gilbert Burns did. And in both of those scenarios, they eked out a decision win through heavy grappling, but they weren't able to submit Wonderboy, right? Grappling and some ground and pound. Now, as of late, one thing we're not seeing is grappling, wrestling, holding people down in and of itself is not giving people the decision unless there are no other factors that the judges can go off of. So if we look at what happened between Gilbert Burns and Wonderboy, if we look at what happened between Belal Muhammad and Wonderboy, they kind of held him down. They hit him a little bit, but they didn't do a ton of damage. Now, with Shavkat, there's no doubt in my mind that if he can get the fight to the ground, he can ground and pound, he can get a TKO victory, he could probably get a submission. There's no doubt in my mind that can happen. But the question is, because of this larger octagon, because of this larger space, is he going to be able to get the fight to the ground? I'm kind of thinking yes, but it certainly could play a factor in making it more difficult. The more space Wonderboy has, the better. If the fight doesn't go to the ground, if Shavkat can't get the takedown, or it's hard for him to get the takedown, if it's hard for him to hold Wonderboy down, right? Now we have a fight that's on the feet. And if the fight's on the feet, really, this could go either way. Thompson is a hard guy to deal with on the feet. He's considered by many the best striker in the welterweight division. So anybody and everybody who faces him tries to grapple, tries to get in close, tries to close the distance, right? That's what everybody tries to do. But if there's no significant ground and pound, if it's just a question of holding Stephen Thompson in place, if it's just a question of holding Wonderboy in place, and if Wonderboy can get free, if Wonderboy gets stood back up at the end of each round, and if he can land strikes that actually do some damage, on the judges' scorecards, things could be a lot more narrow. It could be a lot closer. The be-all and end-all is this. I do think Shavkat Rakhmanov is going to come out of this one on top. And really and truly, I think he's probably going to get a finish. Especially if he can get it to the ground and lay down some heavy ground and pound compared to what Gilbert Burns did, compared to what Belal Muhammad did. But if it ends up in a situation where Wonderboy has space and perhaps he can stall or hold off the takedown, if he has space and it just becomes a striking match, this fight is a lot closer than the odds makers have it. And because the octagon is bigger this time compared to what it was during the two matches where he lost, basically due to wrestling and grappling from Gilbert Burns and Belal Muhammad, I definitely think Wonderboy has a better chance than we're giving him credit. Again, I'm not saying he's going to win. I'm just saying I think it could potentially be closer than the odds makers have it, if and only if Wonderboy can stay on his feet. What do you think? Do you think the size of the cage is going to be any sort of factor? On the feet, do you think it has the potential to be a closer match? Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for stopping by.